Good morning, it's Miss Gainey. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to interrupt the regular programming to do a special reading because today is a special day. As you can see, I'm wearing all green, and that's because today is St. Patrick's Day. So to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, I found this book that I had, and I was thinking to read some of these tales. If you guys remembered, I showed you the scarf that I got from Ireland with all the intricate details and all the Celtic knots. So you can see the same on this book. And the pages are coated in gold. You can see. And if you can see this little part here of the book, it's called the headband, and they made the choice to make that green. See? Anyway, all is to say, we actually are not going to be reading from this book because the tales are very grim. So it's not as exciting, but I'll be reading some similar tales from my iPad, which are also kind of grim, but not as dark. So the first tale that I want to read is called The Pooka and the Piper. And the Pooka is kind of, he makes his way into a lot of these Irish tales as a bad guy, I guess you would say. When we think of fairy tales, we think of like happy Disney movies, but that's not really the case in Irish fairy tales. They're much more dark. Okay, so the Pooka and the Piper. In the olden days, there was a man who played the pipes, but he was not famous for it. Or if he was, it was for the wrong reasons, since he had but the one tune, a jaunty jig, called the Black Rogue. Now it happened one dark night that he was on his way home after entertaining the gentleman, and with a few pence in his pocket and a few drinks under his belt, he felt in grand form. But it was not to last, for he'd only stepped onto a little bridge near to his mother's home when a Pooka leapt from behind the bushes and flipped him up head over heels to land on his back. "May the road swallow you whole," the piper swore, clinging to his hat. "Let me off your back, you nasty beast, for I must get snuff for my old mother." "Never mind about your mother," said the Pooka. "You'd best keep your mind on holding fast, for if you fall, both your pipes and your neck will be broken." Then the Pooka asked him to play the poor old woman, but the piper admitted he didn't know it or any song besides the one. "Never mind what you know or don't," said the Pooka. "You play, and I'll be sure you play it right." And with that, the piper put wind in his back and played such a fine tune, it even astounded him. But he was getting worried now and asked the Pooka where he was being brought. "There's a great feast in the house of the Banshee," said the Pooka, "and I'm bringing you there." Not at all sure he liked the sound of this, the piper asked about his pay and was reassured that he'd get what he'd asked for. Not much less worried by the answer, he clung on tight as they raced across hills and bogs and rough places until they came to Croagh Patrick. "If nothing else, you've saved me a journey," said the piper, "for Father William put a trip to this very mountain on me as a penance for stealing his white goose." When they reached the top of the Pooka, the Pooka stamped 3 great blows with his foot and an earthen door opened, letting them pass into a fine room beyond. Ancient, it seemed, and low of roof, yet spacious for all that, since there was in the middle a great golden table where sat 100 old women. Kelika they were, of a different kind than the Pooka, but still they rose to greet him, saying, 100,000 welcomes you, Pooka, and who is our great guest? And they gnashed their teeth and cackled, much to the fear of the piper, but the Pooka said, I have brought to you the finest piper in all of Ireland. Then one of the ancient crones struck a blow on the ground, and who should come out of a door but that very same white goose he had stolen from Father William. At this the piper began to wonder what was in that soup that he'd eaten that night, for by his conscience he'd have sworn himself and his mother had eaten every part of that goose except the wing, which he'd given to Red Mary, who in turn told the priest of his wrongdoing. Naturally, of course, the goose busied itself clearing away the table, and the Pooka told the piper to play, and so he did, getting all the old ladies up, dancing until they fell down exhausted. Then the Pooka mentioned his pay, and they put their hands in their pockets and each pulled out a shiny golden coin, which they gave to him. Be Patrick's tooth, he said to himself, I'm as rich as the son of a king. And the goose came up to him and gave him a fine set of shiny new pipes to play as well. Come on now, and less of your talk, said the Pooka. I'll bring you back to your mother. And as quick as 2 winks and a sneeze, they were back in Dunmore. Bucking the piper off, the Pooka said to him, Now you have 2 things you didn't have before. That is sense and music. Going back to his mother's house, the piper rapped on the door, declaring himself both rich and the best piper in Ireland, but others declared him drunk instead. Wait now, he says, till you hear the music that I will play. He strapped on his fine new pipes, but instead of music came out the most awful commotion of geese, blaring and honking, and all the neighbors came out and laughed at him. But then he put on his old pipes, and they played as melodious as a tune you've ever heard. The next morning, all of his gold pieces were turned to leaves, but he still played the most beautiful music in all of Galway from that day until he died. So the moral of that story is the road to wisdom can be the longest. So that's the Pooka and the Piper. I hope you enjoyed today's story. I encourage you to look up more fairy tales. Maybe I'll read some more, but like I said, they don't usually have happy endings. Anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day, and thanks.